discipline, courage, success, endurance. Strength, kindness, courage, humble. Spot Barber Academy. June 19th, 2023. Intentional conversations with community leaders. Getting real about race, relationships, but most importantly, the human resource. Let's go. Achievement. What does that mean? As we reflect on Juneteenth, we reflect on a president signing an Emancipation Proclamation, freeing, declaring that all who have enslaved people, those slaves are declared free. But 2 years later, there were still Black Americans in this country that were not free. They did not know until 1865, June 19th, 1865. We're here, Spot Barber Academy in Doral, on location for a special Juneteenth podcast. I'm your host, Gale Nelson, President and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Miami, and we're going big. And when you talk about achievement, there's nothing bigger than Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And I'm joined today by the pole mark of the Fort Lauderdale alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Wendy Pognon, and the Vice President of the Achievement Foundation, Noel Hyatt. Welcome, brothers.
Thank you, Brother Nelson. Thank you, appreciate it.
Now, I need to go ahead and disclose for all the world to know and to hear, I'm not only interviewing today as a podcast host, I'm not only the president and CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters Miami, but I'm a Noop as well. So I'm happy to have you brothers here with me today. And let's just talk about just Juneteenth. When you hear Juneteenth, Wendy, what comes to mind for you, brother?
A lot of things really come to my mind, thinking about all the people that suffered throughout those 2 years, thinking that they were still slaves. And it took some people to come and show them exactly that they weren't slaves at all. So now these people are walking around, really don't have nothing to do, and thinking that what's next in their lives. And so they're very disadvantaged, they don't know where to go. But now, over 200 years later, we're here to hopefully, get that rolling to the right area.
Absolutely. And Noel, when you think about starting, it's like running track. You give somebody a head start, and all of a sudden, imagine June 19th, 1865. Oh, by the way, you're free. What's your first move? What do you do?
Correct. And that's important for us to have this discussion, because if you don't know your history and your past, then you really don't have a foundation to know where you can go and how far you've come. So that discussion, I remember years ago, Juneteenth wasn't really widely celebrated. And even me as an immigrant coming from Jamaica, didn't have a knowledge growing up, because that's not taught in school. So you don't learn that history really in school. You have to seek out that knowledge and information. But now that we have more platforms like this to disseminate information, we know that our young people from all cultures can learn about the history of where and how much people of color have achieved in this country, and how far we've come, and then how far we still have to go. I mean, battles are still being fought. That post Juneteenth in 1865, we still see that there's a struggle to how are we going to teach our history? What is going to be taught in the schools? That is still being discussed and fought over right now in Florida as we are sitting here right now. So it's important to have these discussions and this platform where we can discuss our history.
And speaking of platform, brothers, we're sitting here in a barbershop. So now the barbershop in the Black community, so I remember growing up in inner city Toledo, Ohio. I'm thinking, why are all these brothers arguing? But they weren't arguing. It's just what we did in the barbershop. I mean, back in the day when Larry Holmes was heavyweight champion and Marvelous Marvin Hagler was middleweight champion, these brothers were going at it. So my mother would drop us off in the barbershop, and that was my exposure to all these Black men that became mentors and father figures, and say, all right, boys, sit down. And my haircut wasn't fancy, similar to what's going on today, but the bottom line, brothers, is the significance of the barbershop in our community and just having platforms for Black men to discuss. Talk about it, Wendy.
Well, it goes back to the fraternity. You think about it, 1911, a group of men in Indiana, they saw a vision. 10 black men said they did have opportunity to make themselves better and to make the campus better. And they stood there and said, you know what, we can make a difference. And now 110 years later, the fraternity is still going strong. Achievement is our motto. In every field of human endeavor, we create lots of opportunities, and we continue to grow the fraternity. We have brothers in every field of human endeavor, in science, in military, education, in government. We continue to focus on leadership and making people better, and also we take it to our Kappa leaguers, our young kids, and we instill that information to them so they can grow and learn about not only being a part of a group but being a leader overall.
When I think about every field of human endeavor, and just you look at the names, and you think of one of the best NBA players ever played a game, trophy named after him, Bill Russell. When I think about my namesake, Gale Sayers, Mu chapter in Kansas, Kappa man. And so not limited to athletics, but we're talking every field of human endeavor. And you talk about Kappa League. Noel, when we talk about just the next generation, we talked about education. And as a Jamaican immigrant, what wasn't taught. And like you said, the battle wages on today. If you limit someone's education, you limit their exposure. You limit what they feel they can be. And we don't ever want to forget about our past. Talk about the Kappa League and the opportunity, to educate and to mentor those young men.
Well, that's a great segue. I like how Wendy was able to tie in what the fraternity does with your question about how the barbershop works in the community. But the Achievement Foundation is the philanthropic arm of the fraternity, and we help to administer the Guide Right Kappa League mentoring program, which I believe everyone who's done the research realizes that mentoring is one of the most effective tools to help our young people, to give them that exposure, to give them a worldview, so to expand their horizons. So we work locally, but we think globally with our young people. So we project them to be global leaders, to have an impact to where they can change the world. And you do that by mentoring them, by exposing them to different career fields, to different thoughts of thinking about the possibilities of where they can find their place, where their gifts and talents can be used in a God-given way to where they can impact and change the world and leave the world in a better place than we've left it. So we challenge that next generation we raise the bar, and generally we've learned that kids rise to that level of expectation. When you raise the bar of expectation, then kids, when they're exposed to more, then they will want more, they'll do more, they'll be able to perform more if you give them. And that's any culture, any race, any generation of kids. So mentorship is key. So what we do, we expose those young men, and especially young men need that mentorship. You mentioned it, that you had it as a young child going to the barbershop. So we provide that barbershop experience to those young men where we pour into their lives and we give back. So we're paying it forward. We're paying it forward because we're pouring ourselves into that next generation, and we're giving them guidance, mentorship. We're that voice of sounding board where we lead them into, okay, here's a positive step that you can make. We mentioned the spot barbershop where they can learn skills. They can be exposed to trade skills, college opportunities, educational opportunities. And then as men, how do you find your place in the world of usefulness so that you can be a positive impact and a change agent in the world? So that's what we kind of challenge our young men to. And once you do that, we find that they usually rise to that level of expectation. So,
and for both of you in that mentoring space, we'll start with you, Wendy. The partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, not only locally and here in South Florida, but they're even on a national level. What does that mean for the fraternity as Polemark? And congratulations as incoming Polemark with the Fort Lauderdale Alumni Chapter. That's not lost on me. Achievement in every field of human endeavor, my brother. So what does this partnership mean to you and the significance of this partnership?
Well, part of Kappa Alpha Psi is we try to reach out to make sure we partner with the right people and making sure for the common goals. And when we do a good partnership like this with Big Brothers Big Sisters, it's better for the community. We have better goals, and at the same time, we become a winning team. And if we become a winning team, and everybody wins. We win, you win, and also all the people that participate that win, the kids, the parents, all the generations that come in. Because what we do, what Brother Hyatt says, is that we plant that seed for success for those kids, and they're able to transition it down to their people around them and also to their families. So we continue to do the partnership. It is great to have. I think it's going to be the greatest thing that happened to the Kappa Alpha side, both locally and nationally, once we continue to make the progress and success of it all.
That's beautiful. Noel, from your vantage point, the significance of this partnership.
Well, the significance is that, excuse me, nationally, internationally, we have an agreement with Big Brothers and Big Sisters to serve as mentors. But locally, this local partnership, planting the seed, as Brother Wendy mentioned, where we as a local chapter can partner with the local affiliate of Big Brothers Big Sisters Miami, and then now we can increase that footprint and exposure for our young mentees, so we can partner and give them opportunities for scholarship, for education, for training, for leadership development, all those socio-emotional skills that they can learn as young leaders. We literally can change lives and change the world and the universe. So we could produce the next president of the United States, the next governor of Florida, the next pastor, leader, entrepreneur. So we know that with creating this partnership, then the best of both worlds, because we're dedicated towards planting that seed to the next generation. Big Brothers and Big Sisters has a similar vision, mission statement. So when we work together, as Brother Wendy likes to say, when you work, we win. We all win. So that's one of his famous quotes I just borrowed. But I think it's apropos for this situation, because as we partner together, we can provide mentees from our brotherhood to serve as bigs to youth in the community, as well as our youth being able to benefit from the partnership with the additional resources that Big Brothers Big Sisters brings to the table. So then, as Wendy mentioned, the youth win, both organizations win, because it's a symbiotic relationship. It's symmetrical because we're all participating, giving back to each other. So I believe that the rising tide, everybody wins when you have a situation where we all have a return on our investment of our time, our resources, and even our economics. You know, we basically have a mutual building block together. So it's a great foundation.
Time, talent, and treasures.
Time, talent, and treasure. Let's look back, brothers. 1863, we think about race relations. 1865, we think about race relations. Key dates in the Juneteenth chronology. 1911, January 5th to be exact, 1911. These 10 black men begin the fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. 2023. So as we look at 1863, 1865, 1911, and now 2023, sadly, we're still dealing with some of the same foolishness of racism, the divisiveness of racism. So as we move forward, with still focused on achievement, because you think about this, let's reflect though for a minute. Let's stop in 1911. The vision that those men had, the courage those men had. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? No.
To just put ourselves back in that time, just to reflect, we see that men have fought for the soul of this country in the history, when you study the history, because to form an organization where you're looking at addressing the lowest on the socioeconomic form, and you're giving a vehicle for upliftment and you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about generations down the line, how you can impact and how you can raise that level of achievement. So you are literally, you're helping build the country to make it live up to the ideals that the United States was founded upon, where everyone has equality, everyone has an opportunity to live their life to the best of their ability, where all men and women are created equal, where you have the ideals of this country actually being challenged by men saying, we want to be able to make the country a better country. So to have the will and the courage to do that, and despite in those times, you really could have been executed for being educated. So just to make that declaration that you wanted to help your fellow man or brothers to be educated, that was not a small task. That took courage. That took real courage. And just to reflect, to form an organization where you accepted everyone, regardless of color, race, creed. So even while you were discriminated against, you had the vision and fortitude to say, we will take everybody. So to form an organization to where you thought outside of where your circumstances were, but you said, we want to build a better union. We want to build a better environment. We want to build a better future for generations to come by not being limited and by saying, we're going to accept everybody, regardless of race, religion, creed, color, and to do that in 1911, to think that way. So we think about Martin Luther King, but these were dreamers in 1911. They had a dream, and they lived out their dream. Ironically, our founder was called the Dreamer, and he was a minister, and you can see that foundation that before Martin Luther King, men dreamed, and men said, we can actually create a better union, and we can be a better reflection than what society is giving us. So we have that same challenge today. We can rise above and use love as our guide. Their language was love. They talked about loving their fellow man and changing the world by love. So they had love for each other, and they had love for their culture, their generation, and for the world at large, because they really changed. They created an international organization that now spread from just Indiana to Africa, to the West Indies, to every continent, Europe, to Germany, to men who served in the armed forces, to the first black 4-star general, to we talk about in medicine. So the contributions that they planted the seed that literally would impact millions is our challenge today, to continue that, to live with courage and to live above what we see even going on politically today. You know, how do you rise above that? How do you live with love and with intention to where we're not limited to what we see going on? So that takes real vision. Without a vision, the people perish. But that takes vision to project that we can create a better future for generations to come. I don't know, that would be very difficult to put yourself back in time and say, how could us, Wendy, you and I, how could we have stood that test?
Incredible, incredible.
That took real.
And so as a past Polemark leader within Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, vice president of the Achievement Foundation, as current Polemark, from a leadership seat, take us back to 1911, if you will, Wendy, and as we fast forward to 2023 and beyond.
Okay. What I take from 1911, a lot of people don't know, we started as Kappa Alpha Nu. Kappa Alpha Nu, yeah. Kappa Alpha Nu, 1911. They was incorporated, and the thing is that they got a lot of racial slurs, they got a lot of negativity, but the brothers didn't get mad, they didn't get ugly. What they did is adapt, they changed, and we became Kappa Alpha Psi. And as we became Kappa Alpha Psi, we were able to shed off all those negativity, and they couldn't really say anything, negative about the fraternity. Now, we're the only fraternity, sorority that was in a predominantly, white establishment, and we went nationally, then we went globally, and now we're all over the world because it's a fraternity that spreads achievement in every field of endeavor. It makes brothers into friends and forever brothers. We continue to make long-lasting relationships. We include everyone and everybody we touch. I could be here in Miami, in Doral, or I could be here in Alaska. The brotherly love is going to be the same. So as a fraternity, as a group, I think it's changed from back then because we could always gather each other and enjoy each other's company, and also talk about what's going on in today's society. And so that 1911 brothers, when they first met, still are giving us lots of love and gifts till here, 2023. So that's the whole premise of being in a fraternity or being in an establishment like Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated.
Well, brothers, as we sit here in this barbershop in 2023 and reflecting on Juneteenth, and as we understand the common theme, courage, vision, dreaming, but that foundation of love for each other, those brothers, those 10 brothers that were together, that founded an incredible organization that still leads today. But now there's little ones that are coming behind us, these young men. And I've seen, when you look at Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, it's everybody, all inclusive, to your point, Brother Noel. And so as we move forward, I want to thank you on behalf of Big Brothers, Big Sisters Miami, on behalf of just all the littles in South Florida that will be put on a path through the Guide Right Mentoring Program, through the Kappa League, to be in contact with brothers who will mentor. And I want you both. Now, as for all those Kappa brothers out there that are not mentoring, you can do it your own individual way. Before we close this Juneteenth podcast, it's a call to action. Talk to the Kappa brothers here in South Florida, because it's time to get to work. Noel, go ahead, brother.
Well, the challenge is, as we reflect back, how do we impact the generation coming behind us? How do we leave this world in a better place? Mentorship is probably one of the number one ways or methods that we can use. All the empirical studies, but you really don't even need to do a deep dive. Just look at how our lives were impacted. My elementary school teacher, when I joined the fraternity, he became a principal. I would come back and visit him in school, and then I became his fraternity brother. So full circle, he was one of my heroes when I was in elementary school, because just how he presented and carried himself as a strong black man. And me being an immigrant coming from the West Indies, coming from Jamaica specifically, for me, I saw and lived the impact of having strong mentors. I had a great father and mother, pastor, educator, but having mentors helped propel me to be the man that I am today. So we know that any brothers out here that watch this podcast, I believe the main measure of us as men is, what do you give back? How did you leave the world in a better place than you found it? What did you do with your gifts and talents? What did you give back? It's not, at the end of the day, the Creator's not going to care how much money we made. He's going to ask you what you poured back with the gifts that I gave you. How did you impact others? And that's really the message with our fraternity organization, based on Christian principles of how did you love your fellow man and women? How did you impact the next generation? So for us, the challenge is, for anybody listening, if you're not involved, now's the time to get involved in mentorship. Brother Wendy mentioned time, talents, treasure, leaving that as our legacy. So my challenge is always thinking, what legacy am I going to leave? My challenge, what legacy are we going to leave as a collective? And that's the challenge that we should all think about. What legacy are we going to leave? And so with that thought, anybody, any brother especially, we have a duty, a responsibility to be that change that we always, so we focus on the solutions. So we are the solution for what's going on in anything that's happening in our society now. So 100 years from now, they'll be looking back at us and what we did, just like we're looking back 100 years on what the founders of our organization did. So,
and Wendy, I love how Noel threw in the personal impact of mentorship in his life, that elementary school teacher. And I'm sure you watched the way he dressed, the way he carried himself, and everything else. Who was that mentor? Think back, where comes to mind. Who mentored you? And then I want you to do a call to action as well, Brother Pognon.
If I tell you, so I moved to South Florida when I was in the middle school. Again, I'm a Haitian descent, so I was born in Haiti, grew up in Jersey City, and I went to middle school at Everglades Middle School back then. Now it's called William Dandy. My first experience was the principal. His name was Mr. Humphreys. And I forgot what I did. I just went to the office to receive what my punishment was. And I received my punishment, and come to find out, this guy was always in my head throughout high school and college, and I came back, he was a Kappa. So to this day, you know, I'm still involved with their family. He's passed away. He was, as a matter of fact, he had a twin that was a president at a predominantly black school, and he was an Alpha, and his brother was a Kappa. But to this day, I always think about him. He was my first introduction to Kappa Alpha Psi. Set me straight, and to that day, and look at me now. You know, I'm happy, married, enjoy life, and I get an opportunity to come and talk to you guys and have your friendship and love all the time. What I ask the brothers that's on the podcast is just come home to Kappa. Kappa is never going anywhere. We're here for you, both you know, in the social environment, because we're all social fraternity, and also opportunities for you to come help with the leadership opportunities at our chapter. Or you could go to any other chapter in your area. I mean, there's a lot of brothers, a lot of chapters that need you, and there's a lot of communities that need you. So please come home to Kappa.
Brothers, it's been an honor. It's an honor being in the noble clan of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, and it's a pleasure to work with brothers alongside brothers to not only look back and reflect, but to exponentially change the trajectory of our littles and our kids so they can have a bigger future. So thank you, brothers, for being with us today.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
And on behalf of our president, Brent Folks, he wasn't able to be here today, president of the Achievement Foundation as well, and our past leadership, it's a great opportunity, and we look forward to the partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters Miami to being a change agent and an example for chapters all over the country, all over the world, to form this partnership to where we can impact and change our communities. So thank you for that, Brother Nelson.
Achievement in every field of human endeavor. Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated Achievement Foundation, doing big things in South Florida. Juneteenth, reflect back, we never forget. Most importantly, something now, because achievement never ends as long as we have opportunity to help young people.